Professional environments are built like clockwork. They run on linear tracks, standardized processes, and predictable schedules. But human cognition operates differently. When a mind processes information non-linearly, jumping between ideas in a rapid, chaotic burst, it grinds against rigid corporate gears. Jim Columbus knows this friction well. Diagnosed with Tourette syndrome as a child and managing ADHD traits, Jim processes the world through a different lens. Instead of fighting his neurodivergence, he channels it into deep pattern recognition and sustained hyperfocus. For decades, these unconventional problem-solving methods lacked an accommodating infrastructure. Then, large language models arrived. For creators like Jim, artificial intelligence acts as a specialized translation layer. It takes raw, divergent cognitive leaps and formats them into the structured outputs that traditional systems understand and value. But there is a glaring problem. If you look for guidance on how a neurodivergent mind should actually leverage this technology, the expert advice shatters into conflicting fragments. To map this landscape, Jim designed an experiment. He took a single question: what is the fastest-growing opportunity for neurodivergent creators using AI? And posed it to 6 models: Grok, Claude, Perplexity, DeepSeek, Mythomax, Mistral. You might expect these advanced systems to converge on a single, mathematically optimal answer. Instead, they delivered 6 highly polarized, personality-driven strategies. Welcome to the 6 LLM Trend Radar. A single prompt splits outward, generating a vast and totally uncoordinated data landscape. Curious. These conflicting outputs aren't a hallucination or an error in the code. They represent the actual terrain. Figuring out how to navigate these contradictions is the real puzzle creators must solve to find their edge. These outputs reveal a direct ideological clash, a heated roundtable debate between 6 distinct artificial personalities. This radar chart maps their competing priorities. First, we have Grok 3 taking a highly visionary stance. It pushes aggressively outward on the axis of AI-powered content creation, arguing that generating videos, writing, and symbolic myth-making is the ultimate opportunity. Claude pushes back immediately. It argues for architectural restraint, demanding strict attention to prompt engineering, bias auditing, and governance. It snaps a heavy boundary line around raw generation to enforce safety. Then DeepSeek enters with a purely strategic mindset. It ignores the creative chaos entirely and forces these organic shapes into structured categories and actionable, perfectly aligned steps. We are watching a tug-of-war between scale and control. Generating massive amounts of creative material actively fights against the strict requirements needed to audit and govern it. Pushing raw creativity without any structural governance doesn't build an audience. It just creates digital noise. Stepping away from the conflict over generation and control, the remaining models analyze the market from entirely different angles. Perplexity zeroes in on hard data, isolating tailored learning and adaptive design as the most critical sectors for growth. Mistral takes a broad sweep across 8 different industries, offering a contrarian reality check. Widespread adoption of AI is inevitable, but finding a unique, defensible advantage will be exceedingly rare. And then Mythomax introduces a humanist pivot. Stripping away technical metrics entirely, it argues true growth is rooted in emotional inclusion and authentic human expression. The implication here is stark. If you build a highly efficient, technically perfect system, it will still fail unless you inject genuine human empathy and personalization to connect with the end user. 6 models, 6 entirely different directions, but they aren't actually disagreeing. They are each describing isolated components of a single, much larger ecosystem. Jim Columbus engineered the Chappie protocol to consolidate these disjointed outputs into a unified strategy. This orchestration creates hybrid plays. Instead of choosing raw output or safety, you combine them, building adaptive story systems that weave content, governance, and personalization together at scale. Orchestrating these competing agents requires the ability to see patterns across seemingly unrelated datasets, the exact skill Jim uses to manage ADHD and Tourette's. By layering these conflicting outputs, a hierarchy of opportunity emerges. Content provides the entry point, ethical governance builds trust, and adaptive personalization creates the scale. The high-leverage skill of the future isn't generating digital text, but orchestrating the noise of conflicting artificial minds into a unified expression of human intent.